Shot the yellow.
Entrepreneurship, it's our game. The Big Potato Podcast is yours to claim. From startups to scaling up, we cover it all, so don't mess up.
And welcome back, you guys, to the Big Potato Podcast. Yep. Stuart and Kendall and Stuart, the Big Potato duo, the Big Potato team. Glad to be here once again for episode number 7. Yeah, 7th heaven. Here we are again. For sure, season 2. We are here and we are flowing, growing, and glowing. Yep. You know, we are intentional when we use these types of words in our intro. Just a sign of things to come tonight in this episode. Stuart, how you doing, buddy?
I am great. Good night, Kendall. Good night to all the listeners. Well, whenever they get the episode, night, morning, afternoon, evening, hello to the listeners.
Yep.
Right now, I'm trying to keep my mind off of sports, you know. We were just discussing before we started to record the episode, you know, what's going on in the sports and, you know, the Classico, right?
Big news.
I'm a bit shattered from that, but my co-host says it is glee.
It's about time. Long in coming. But that's right, you guys. We are here yet again. You know how we do it on the Big Potato Podcast. We empower entrepreneurs for today's business landscape. It's a light-hearted discussion delivering strategic business insights. And we've touched on so many industries. And tonight, we have a special episode planned for you guys. Thinking about exporting your products, or maybe even moving your operations to another country, another destination, another location. You're thinking about the types of products you would want to do based on your niche. Stuart, you feel about tonight?
Yeah, I'm very excited about it. You know who we have on board here? And it's going to be an exciting discussion. Very informative as well. And I think for our listeners, it'll be very pertinent in terms of where they might want to carry their products, you know. Niche, as I said, and geography, you know. You could expand geographically. So I think we're going to discuss both of them tonight.
Excellent. Our guest tonight, she is the founder and owner of Bayleaf. What a wonderful name. It's a herbal tea brand that exports exotic herbal teas, unmatched flavors, and extraordinary benefits, offering you daily natural healing. She's a creator and world traveler, building a company that offers people natural healing and inspiration. I mean, we're talking tea here. So she's a tea expert, marketer, brand collaborator as well. And let me tell you, I know she's going to share a lot more about her story later on in the episode. But I saw this on our website and I said I had to share it. Inspiration. Yeah, she was inspired by her own grandmother, who revered bay leaves, and Caribbean elders who have always healed their families with herbs. Her name is Tamika Phillip. Yep, Tamika, welcome to the Big Potato Podcast.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Coming to you from outside of Trinidad. And I'm here in Grenada, and I'm excited about our conversation.
Sure. I mean, Tamika, always Grenada, always lovely is the Spice Isle.
The Spice Isle is lovely. It's spicy. It's peaceful. And I like to call it a retreat island, which is great for entrepreneurs to add balance to our lives.
Wow. That is an excellent start to the episode, you know.
Yeah, great point off the bat.
I'm telling you. I think we need to book a visit to Grenada still.
Yeah, sounds peaceful. Sounds peaceful. I need some peace in my life after that Classico.
Yes, you do.
So, Tamika, we look forward to chatting with you about Bayleaf, about your journey, and about many different topics that we're going to really uncover tonight. But at first, let's start this episode as we do every episode with our first segment. It's called What Caught Our Eye. This is where we deliver key, quick insights on articles or stories of significance that we may have encountered in the recent past. Stuart, what caught your eye this week, buddy?
Well, you know me, I am always there for the underdog, always supporting the small man trying to build themselves and accomplish goals. So what caught my eye is a story about CARICOM. April the 8th, 2024, it appeared on the website. For this article, that CARICOM and CAC signed cooperation agreement to strengthen agriculture, regional trade, and other initiatives. So what caught my eye in the article is the fact that it really marks a milestone in the relationship between CARICOM and the CAC. Now, CAC, being the Central American Agricultural Council, will provide a lot more markets to our small CARICOM region. So it's always good to see the small independent operators having more and more doors open to them. So again, the focus really will be climate adapted, sustainable agriculture, food security, agricultural productivity, digitalization in agriculture, and regional agricultural trade. So it'll be very interesting to hear Tamika's thoughts in terms of, what's your favorite word, Kendall?
Opportunity.
Yeah, some opportunity. What sort of opportunities would Tamika, in her field, see as those doors would have been opened? Because when this was signed, it was immediately active. So what are your thoughts, Tamika? You see a lot of opportunities for growth and market expansion for your company?
Oh, absolutely. The market is wide open and the market is global. Because of the importance of food security and the fact that the Caribbean is full of natural wealth. And because the market is shifting into health and wellness because of an absolute need for healing in the world, the Caribbean is in a very strong position to actually expand our markets, get into foreign regions that we have not even reached, because we have such a sustainable and natural foundation here. Because we're so full of natural wealth that we can build our brands based on our natural wealth and sustainability.
That's a fantastic point, especially in this day and age, this era of business, where sustainability is so important. And I know that you have a lot of sustainable initiatives as well with your business. And I know that we'll talk a lot about that later on in the episode as well. Now, what I liked about the article that you came across, Stuart, is the fact that there will be rural opportunities as well, right? So far often you find that rural communities might be overlooked. They may not have the same ability to produce like other more urban settings. And sometimes it's overlooked because the infrastructure may not be there and the readiness may not be in a prepared state. So now with signings like this, partnerships like this, I am certain that more opportunities for growth in rural communities and areas will be sustained as well, where these communities could now blossom and have the opportunity to level the playing field, which is very important as well.
Yep, that's a great point, Kendall. I just want to let people know that when I speak about the Central America market that has been opened up by the agreement, I'm talking about countries like Belize and Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, even Panama. And, Panama is the Panama Canal, right? So being present in those regions will give you both oceans to really get your products out. The Atlantic and the Pacific Oceans through the Panama Canal. So I see a lot of opportunity for entrepreneurs, and I really hope that they grasp it.
And I mean, as you said that, Stuart, it segues perfectly, as it always does, into what caught my eye this week. Now, what caught my eye actually came from the US Chamber of Commerce. Yeah, and while it's a US-based article, I think that the information is pretty pertinent to anybody anywhere around the world. And it says what to consider before taking your business global. All right? So we're talking about globalization, we're talking about expansion, we're talking about setting up business in different countries. A global expansion opens up new growth opportunities, but of course it comes with unique challenges as well. And here are a few things to consider. All right? When you expand into a global market, you will require many logistical considerations. I'm sure Tamika could tell us a lot about that, such as determining how your goods will be manufactured and distributed to other countries. I mean, in Tamika's case, her product being made in one part of the world and she is exporting it. So we're going to hear a lot more about that later on. But according to the article, a few more factors must be considered as well. Market potential, and you always hear about that. So you must assess the demand and competition as well in target markets to ensure product market fit. You must consider the costs, planning for manufacturing, marketing, unforeseen expenses while managing your cash flow as well. Because you're in a foreign country, you must understand how the cost structure works there. Sometimes in your home country, something may cost a particular price, a raw ingredient for your product, for example. And in another country, it may be more expensive. So you never know. You have to work all these things out. Of course, legal and regulatory requirements. You must understand the local laws where you'll be operating and the employment regulations as well. Data protection. Don't overlook any of these things. Cultural differences plays a key role. Stuart, we spoke about this on this podcast before.
Culture is key.
Culture is key. And you must be able to adapt into the management practices to align with the local culture and the business environment while inculcating your own. Infrastructure and payment structure as well. Must be able to set up your business in all aspects. And of course, these are just a few of the considerations that we could look at. So I'm interested to hear from our guest Tamika tonight in terms of expanding operations into a foreign country.
Right.
What sort of considerations would you have had to make for your business?
So, one of the most important elements that you have to consider when you're thinking of exporting to a foreign country, of course, is the economic relationships that your country may have with that country, right? So the Caribbean has signed agreements with countries abroad that may be helpful to your business and would allow you to enter the country in an easier way, right?
Right.
For instance, the US market is a far more open market than the European market, right? We have a history of trade with the US. We have goods coming in from the US, whereas in the European market, it's a closed market because a big part of European policy centers around trading within their region first before going outside to source products. So just that element of their economic policy would make it quite difficult to enter the market, because if they have established supply chain for products, that supply chain will of course be more dominant in the market. And so it would be harder for you to even enter the market or for buyers over there to even consider your business from the region that you're coming from.
Fantastic. Thanks for that feedback. But Stuart, any thoughts on that?
Well, I like it. It reminds me a lot of a traditional model, pestle, political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environment factors that you will use to evaluate whether a market is an attractive market or not. So it's very much in line. A lot of the terms could be, switched out, and a lot of the research, for instance, the setting up of a payment system that could fall into probably the legal, the social systems there. But the real thing that stood out to me is the cultural differences. And it's such a coincidence that I mentioned culture earlier. It reminds me of a book, The Culture Code, by Dr. Rapai.
Yes, man.
Yes. And that what really stuck out was, at least in our instance, how we discussing tea tonight. In that book, there was a reverse of the example where he was trying to break coffee into the Japanese market. He had to try and create imprints on the children from a young age so that by the time they get older, they may have a market, for the coffee in Japan because, Japan is tea. So that stuck out to me, the cultural differences, and reminded me of that book and that example because of how we do in tea tonight.
I wanted to add to the point of the element of cultural differences. It's so important. As Stuart shared, there's some markets that you're not even going to consider going into because they have an established culture of a particular product. Even in the US has a very established coffee market, and they are actually now shifting into teas, whereas in Europe, they have an established black tea market, right? Which is just one type of tea, in the world of teas out there. So it's very, very important to understand the culture and where your true customer base is.
Fully agreed. Couldn't have said it better.
Yeah, I mean, the cultural differences and adjustments that you have to make, it definitely need to be considered because they span far and wide in terms of culture, even from the way you operate, how you greet people, how you treat with them. It is really broad. It's a discussion of its own that we may need to have on this podcast, the future episodes to come.
Definitely.
That's how we wrap up our first segment. What Caught Our Eye, brought to you by IBOMAQ.
Whether you're seeking guidance or solutions for your business, we're here to help. Contact us via IBOMAQ868@gmail.com. That's IBOMAQ868@gmail.com. And let's discuss how we can collaborate for your success.
And we're back on the Big Potato Podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Episode number 7. Tonight, we're talking about expanding your business into different geographical locations and even export. I'm telling you, we're talking about tea as well. We really should have had some Bayleaf here sipping on while we're having this conversation with Tamika Phillip, the owner and founder of Bayleaf. We're glad to have her on tonight. And Tamika, this is your time to shine, really. So tell us a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey. Because interestingly, I saw that you started the company in Turkey. So was there any entrepreneurship in your life before Bayleaf? Or how was life? And tell us a little bit about that entire journey up to this point.
So I think I always had an entrepreneurial spirit because I was a creative. And as a creative, I always had full thoughts of creating products or services or something new for others, right? And I also very much into exploring, and I am an eternal traveler. So I grew up with a dad who had his own business and a mom who had her traditional business at a bank. And so I sort of knew very early on the advantages and disadvantages of these two different paths.
Mm-hmm.
And in college and in all my decisions during that time, it was always based on traveling, the opportunity to travel, and the opportunity to create something new for the market. I did communication arts, film and broadcasting at college. And my one goal in that field was to create original documentary programming in Trinidad, and I was able to get experience in that field in the US and come back to Trinidad and produced original programming. So before I traveled again, I worked in media for a few years producing original television programming. And eventually I left television. I was working as an independent producer, and it could be very difficult in seeking funding.
Mm-hmm.
It became very exhausting. I was operating as an independent producer, so I had to actually source funding for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided to sort of leave that field in search of opportunities that would allow me to create in another way.
Right.
And when I left the US, being the eternal explorer that I am, I flew from the United States to Ethiopia in Africa. So I left the Big Apple. I left one US and landed in a completely different universe.
Right.
A different culture.
And it was there sort of where I started to really be aware of how much culture plays a role in business and branding. Ethiopia is such a homogeneous land with such deep history and culture.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, in Ethiopia, which is the birthplace of coffee itself, coffee is just not a drink. It's a ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
When you're invited to have coffee, you actually dress in their traditional wear, and there is a ritual that's performed that actually shares the making of the coffee, the grinding of the coffee beans. And then you have that community element where coffee is enjoyed as a group,
Right.
So through my travels, I was really consumed and fascinated by how culture played a role in business.
Mm-hmm.
And that really started to give me the inspiration to launch what we know today as Bayleaf.
Nice.
And when I left Ethiopia, headed to England, and then I landed in Turkey. It was never a plan.
Wow.
But it was a time in my life where my only question was where to next, right?
Yeah.
I knew that I was searching for the inspiration, and I knew that I wanted to build a business, but it had to be totally aligned with my creativity and, what the world needed. So I landed in Turkey as a Trinidadian, which made me like 1 in a million or 5 million. I was truly an alien.
More culture shock.
But very comfortable with that status.
Mm-hmm.
And in Turkey, I lived in a city called Bursa. And Bursa is the textile capital and manufacturing capital. And I was so inspired by all the capacity to produce. And I really began to create the concept of a Caribbean brand. I was just very compelled to create a Caribbean brand. And at the start, I knew that I wanted it to really honor and celebrate three elements: people, culture, and earth. So at the core, that was Bayleaf. And I started the brand with clothing, actually, because I was in Turkey. I was inspired by the natural fabrics that existed in the city that I was in. And I started producing dresses, and my friends around me wanted these dresses. And so the brand Bayleaf actually started with a line of hand-loomed cotton and linen dresses.
Okay.
However, with each dress, there was a packet of dried bay leaves. So when one bought a dress, they would actually get a packet of dried bay leaves so that they can have a cup of tea. So the tea concept was there, but it was not a tea brand at that time. So that's actually the beginnings of Bayleaf in Turkey.
Wow. What a transition.
Yeah, and as I said, really a transition in terms of being able to pivot from where Tamika started, where the tea was actually an accessory to the product. The product was the dresses.
Mm-hmm.
But look at it now. Do you still do the dresses, Tamika, or now it's just solely the teas?
Now it's the tea brand, and I would share how I transitioned to the tea brand when I came to Grenada. I don't do the dresses, but I have a demand for the dresses.
Okay.
Because those fabrics were so divine, and it was made of cotton and linen that we don't have here in the Caribbean. So there's an opportunity to bring them back.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about how Bayleaf transitioned from being about dresses, these high demand dresses, to being a tea brand, especially when you landed in the spice aisle of Grenada.
So when I landed in Grenada and decided to stay, I was really aware of how much land and spice plantations that were in Grenada, and here I was with this brand called Bayleaf, which is a main spice of Grenada. And I saw that I had the natural resource here. I knew that people enjoy teas, and I decided to transition the brand into a herbal tea brand. And coincidentally, I had a family member who actually wanted to produce soursop tea on the market. And I said, yes, I'm that person. And I actually launched soursop tea on the market. I landed here in September, and in December, we had soursop tea on the market, right?
Nice.
Once I did that and I got the experience of launching the first tea on the market, I decided to focus on the export market because these products are available naturally in the Caribbean, and I sort of knew that there would be a greater need for the product abroad. So I started with soursop tea, and we've been growing ever since.
Fantastic. Now let me ask Coach Stuart Johnson, basically moving the brand and your company and the business from one country to another. What were some of the key challenges that you had to overcome? And maybe even some of the key differences? I know culture would be one for sure.
Right.
What are some of the others?
Well, I think what I did was really looked at what Grenada had to offer. I looked at the resources. I looked at the gaps in the market. And so because I had that tea concept already in the brand, I think by looking at the location that I was in and aligning the business to the resources of the land, that allowed the transition to be much easier, right? Because now you have a product that people drink every day, and you have a way to actually harness the local resources and really impact the community and the economy. And so for me, it was easy because I looked for that alignment first and then really focused my energies on that.
Perfect. My question is really about quality control in the supply chain. Most of your product, as I said, is being manufactured for export. And those countries that imported the product will have stringent rules in terms of the quality and so. So how easy or difficult is it to maintain that quality from the farming side to maintaining a certain quality of leaf at all times and being able to carry that through the process where it's able to stand up on the shelves and go through the rigors of transporting and merchandising and surviving on the shelf? How do you go about that challenge?
So in the tea market, you have black tea, which is heavily processed, goes through a process of oxidization, and there's a bit of mechanization in it, right? And this allows the teas to be dried and preserved over a very long period of time, right? And because the teas are dried, it actually allows the tea to be preserved and free of any potential harm for customers. And that's in the black tea market, right?
Right.
So for us, we are in the herbal tea market and our process is all natural. There's no mechanization.
Mm-hmm.
We prune the leaves from the trees. We work with soursop fruit farmers to prune their leaves, which actually helps them to increase their yield. And then we dry naturally indoors, meaning that our leaves are spread out on trays and we have openings around the building where you have hot air coming in, right? These openings are all meshed up to keep the bigger insects from coming in.
Yeah.
So it's dried naturally. And so when you look at product regulations and barriers, because our product is dried and preserved, it has actually made it easier for us to enter markets because of that process, it's protected and the risks are not really there. The other element of it is that in order to enter the US market, you have to be registered with the FDA. And of course, we went through the registration process online. And basically, every year, FDA or other certifying agents would visit the Caribbean and they can visit your facility at any time. They would visit the facility, make their checks, and document what they see to ensure that the quality control standards are maintained. So that's how it works for the US market.
Right, brilliant. Seems like you have that all sorted out. And as I said, it's a low risk.
Yes.
Another question I have is, how do you decide when you choosing different markets, which one you want to enter? How you decide whether, okay, well, they said the EU, they normally will trade with EU members. So the EU might be, well, the European Union might be a difficult option. They might decide not to go there. You've decided to go to North America. So what would have driven that decision? Is it the taste and the flavor profile of your tea, or is it just accessibility, as I said, is a more open market to us?
Right. So in our case, what would have affected this decision was the fact that Grenada holds a special place in the soursop market. Grenada is the only country in the world that can export fresh soursop fruit to the United States because it is the only soursop pest-free country in the world, meaning it does not have a pest. There's a specific pest that attacks soursop trees in other lands. Grenada does not have that pest. And so it holds a top position in the soursop fruit market. And because of that, their has been a lot of attention on the market. And, there are regular conferences around soursop fruits and so. And as you know, the benefits of soursop is now global. There's a lot of scientific information that has confirmed its benefits. And so because of that, we were able to connect to potential buyers in Grenada because of their interest in the fruit, right? And what we were able to do is basically align the benefits of the soursop leaves with the soursop fruit. Because as in the anatomy of a tree, the leaves hold the minerals that then actually feed the fruit, you know? So we were privileged to be in that market. And so I attended a conference with local soursop fruit farmers. And, my first distributor came out of that meeting because I basically went to the buyer and said, you need to have our soursop teas alongside your soursop fruit on the shelves in the United States. And that's basically how we actually entered the US market, through a soursop fruit distributor.
A strategic partner.
Yeah, I mean, that is something that is hugely important and significant. And I'm glad that you mentioned that, Tamika, because just about to talk about the ecosystem around your manufacturing and, of course, the distribution. And I guess we could get into that by talking a bit about networking, which you just mentioned there. And as Stuart said, a key strategic partner was made. So tell us a little bit for the benefit of the audience and those listening on right now who are interested in exporting and expanding their business into foreign lands. What sort of strategy you need to employ into your networking?
Absolutely. Coming from small islands, it's so important to first look for opportunities to collaborate and partner with businesses and product that's aligned with yours, right? Because it really can give you a start, and a start is what we need as entrepreneurs. Once you get in line with a partner that has more experience than you and has been existing in a market, they know the real world dynamics of the business already.
Exactly.
And getting a start with an existing business is a huge benefit to any startup business, right? Another fact that's really important for us here in the Caribbean is that we're small. And so we should always be looking to collaborate with local businesses to actually add value to our product offerings in order to present it to a foreign market, right? Because you may have one product, and that one product could be your one big product. In our case, that's soursop tea. However, if you want to get into certain stores, they may want you to have a range of products, right? And because we have so many products being created locally, we have cocoa products, we have other spice products. Collaborating with other local suppliers is essential to actually get into new stores and expand your business.
Excellent. And I mean, as we expand further into the ecosystem and networking in general, you mentioned earlier collaborating with farmers who produce these bay leaves as well, and I'm guessing the other ingredients. What other sort of collaborations do you do throughout your manufacturing process, and even some backward and forward integration?
Right. So our model from the start has been working with farmers, providing the service of pruning to them in exchange for their leaves. And this is a process that actually helps them increase their yields, right? So that has been a main model for us. We also purchase finished products from other local suppliers and we retail them in our tea room. And this is something that I've always wanted to do from the start because, again, giving other suppliers and producers the opportunity to get their products out there is something that was really important to me. One of our buyers in Philadelphia, who retails our soursop tea, I traveled to the US and spent a week working in his store and meeting customers firsthand because, we are at the source. We're producing our product, shipping it to the US, but we don't have direct contact with our customers abroad.
Right.
We have contact with our retailers, right?
Right.
So for me, it's very special to be able to go to the stores that we sell to and meet with customers to hear directly from them, the experiences they've had with our products. One of the things we were able to do at that store is create a made in Grenada shelf at the store. So we have a corner that when people come in, they can actually purchase a range of Grenadian products. And that was very special for us and continues to be special. And my goal is to continue adding to that range of products from Grenada.
That's fantastic. That's excellent news. And I mean, I think that all territories, all countries, especially in the Caribbean, should have something like that. I've seen it at certain supermarkets abroad, Stuart. I'm sure you've seen it as well, where they have that section of Caribbean products or specific country products like Trinidad or Grenada or Jamaica.
Yeah, I've seen it before. I've seen it. And I really like what Tamika is saying because, in doing the research for this episode, they said key for success in the tea industry is the manufacturer has to be flexible, creative, and responsive to customer feedback. They must rely on data-driven decision-making to guide the strategies. And what did Tamika do? She went and spent a week in a store gathering customer data. And what did she do? She transformed that into a new opportunity. So everything is in line with what they suggest for success and what Tamika is doing. So I really loving it so far.
Fantastic. Collection of primary data.
Mm-hmm.
You can't go wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
The Japanese model, they tell you go and see. And we like to act. We'll add act to that as well. Go, see, act for all you entrepreneurs out there.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic insights flowing so far in this episode. Tamika Phillip, she's on tonight and delivering some gems, dropping some bombs, as we say here on the Big Potato Podcast, for all our entrepreneurs locked on. Stick around. We'll take a short break and be back with more.
From Ibadan to Helyard, from slavery to independence, learn how Helyard, the Trinidad All-Stars, created the Trini identity and how that was leveraged for our independence. Get your copy on Amazon now.
That's right, you guys. We are back on the Big Potato Podcast. Tonight, we're talking about tea. And we're sipping some tea with our guests tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Tamika Phillip, the founder and owner of Bayleaf, that fantastic tea company out there in Grenada. Now, Tamika, you said you wanted to share some more specific information as it relates to data collection and usage.
Right. I wanted to touch on that because the tea market is heavily segmented. It's a big market. Tea is known as the second most popular drink in the world, and it's heavily segmented. So it's very important to understand the customer that you're reaching. In the tea market, you have black tea, you have fruit teas, you have oolong, you have white teas, you have herbal teas, you have tatanes, and you have culture, and you have history. And for us, it's been very interesting learning about our customers because we are exporters, so we are not directly in the location of our customers. And as we went along, we learned about our customers in several ways. One thing that we learned at the height of COVID was when we invested in a small tea machine.
Right.
And of course, we acquired a machine to help with our manufacturing. Most of our teas are handmade. Our team ties thousands of tea bags, but we wanted to add the element of the machine to, of course, increase our capacity. And so we produced the first batch of teas with the machine and shipped it to our existing customer base. And they immediately said no. Our customers did not want the machine-made tea bags. And they let us know.
Wow.
That was the first and last time we shipped machine-made tea bags to that particular buyer, distributor, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was just a moment for us to really become more aware of who our customers are and what they want. Secondly, we were able to begin to understand more about our customers from their reviews. We really studied their reviews, and we found that people were shifting to teas because of several reasons. It could be because of stressful jobs. People had specific ailments that they were looking for specific teas to help with. And so we really studied our customers through their reviews. The other thing that happened to us is that we did a social media campaign for the first time. We partnered with a social media company based in the US to create a campaign that would allow us to really reach customers directly, because most of our business is on the wholesale channel, right? So we wanted to sort of test the direct to customer market. And we created the campaign, and we had an upset with our website with the Visa cards that customers were using. So basically, we had gotten orders coming in. We had increased orders coming in because of the campaign running, but some of the cards weren't going through on our website. So we would see the orders coming in, but they wouldn't be complete. And I actually had to call each customer that came in on the back end and have a discussion with them. And I was able to speak to hundreds of customers abroad about their lives and their interest in herbal teas. And I learned a lot from that.
Yes.
So I just wanted to share that, that was so important for us in defining who our customers are. And today, our teas really target customers who are socially conscious and really care about the source, the origin, and the production process of their teas.
Well, based on what you said just now there, I want to ask you a question on segmentation. Because, I know learning all of these things about tea, right? I've never really studied this industry in depth. But from what I understand now, tea could be defined by two different criteria, basically. One will be functional and one will be flavor profile. You could segment based on those. Like, for instance, turmeric, functionally could help with your immune system, anti-inflammation, could help with your cholesterol. Ginger could help with diabetes and cancer and brain and heart issues. The green tea is the antioxidants and could help with your cognitive function. So there's the functional side of each tea, but then there's the flavor profile as well of the market. So for instance, North America, more into the floral and the fruit teas, like the lemon teas, the moringa, and all of these sort of flavors. The Middle East and Africa, they like the traditional, authentic Arabic flavors. They also love the floral and the fruits. And in Latin America, is very much interested in like jasmine and those sort of teas. So in terms of the segmentation, it's like a puzzle you really have to put together, knowing, okay, I want to target Asia. So I have to give them these functional teas because across there, these are the things that really they care about, and then also their flavor profile. I have to consider that and then put together, a mix that will appeal to them. So given that background I just laid out there, how would you see you segmenting your market based on the soursop? So for instance, we know the flavor profile, it'll be along the fruit side, but what are some of the functional benefits? And in addition to where you are currently situated in markets, what other markets you think, because of those functional and flavor issues, where do you think it could fit nicely?
So presently, soursop tea is our number one selling tea, and we also offer other teas, namely Bayleaf, guava, mango, and lemongrass, right?
Right.
And we also have blends as well. We have soursop tea blends. So far we have actually worked with the demand and what our customers are asking us for. We are in the herbal tea market, also called Tasanis. Herbal teas are also in the Tasani category.
Okay.
And we are also in the functional tea market. So yes, you're absolutely right. We are selling teas that have specific healing benefits that people are looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, we have had a demand and an increase in demand in the US because the market is shifting into health and wellness,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's been traditionally an iced tea market and a coffee market, but there's been a shift. COVID had also a lot to do with that as well. During COVID, our business quadrupled overnight. And so that demand and that interest in functional teas has remained consistent. So the US market, because of where they are in their tea journey, it's a primary market for us right now. We are in about 8 states, and in those states, we are really focusing on expanding within those states. For instance, we're in California. We have 2 buyers in California, but we know that there is a market there for the teas. And so our goal is to really grow within the existing primary market.
Mm-hmm.
However, recently we have had an interest from Canada, and we are going to be entering the Canadian market in December. We are entering the English speaking market and the French speaking market. We've secured a distributor that has already translated our labels for those 2 separate markets. And we'd be entering the Canadian market for the first time. So I would say the US and Canada is where we're going to be focused for the next couple of years.
And would you say those markets are similar in terms of their profiles and so?
Yes. So because we're now entering the Canadian market, we're not entirely sure of the profile of the customer base, but they would have similar characteristics because of the wider shift that's happening in the US.
Okay.
Right? And that shift is a matter of health.
Mm-hmm.
There is an absolute need for people to be more aware of their daily health habits. And a lot of people are now understanding that older cultures have always had a culture of using herbs for natural healing, and they have become very curious about that. So I think Canada would be a similar market to the US.
Okay, great.
Now, a lot has happened there in that discussion since we came back from the last break, Stuart
Yeah.
and Tamika. So, I mean, I just want to kind of sum it up for the audience as well, because so many insights just flying around like asteroids right now. For entrepreneurs out there. It's really important that you hang on to them and not get lost in the process as well. I'll go back a bit to what Tamika mentioned, handcrafted, and the fact that customers in a particular location did not want the machine-made tea. And Stuart, you spoke about quality control and so on earlier. And I mean that this just reinforces that point as well. In addition to the fact that you have to understand why you are in business in the first place, which is to serve the customers that you are trying to sell to. And if they are directly telling you or giving you feedback as to what they want, I mean, you can't ask for anything more. Sometimes you have to go through all kinds of different difficult ways to find information on customer needs and what they really want in terms of your product and how they would want it to be designed, manufactured, etc., etc. So that's perfect. It's very important as well, understanding how to segment your market and the basis for segmentation. And I would even go a step further to saying that you need to create your buyer profiles or your personas as well, understanding that different territories may require, you heard it from Tamika herself, may have different taste profiles in terms of what they want and how they may want it to be packaged to them, how they would want it to be sold to them, which channels are important. All of this is hugely important, whether you have a local business or especially when you export into territories and customers that you don't live in and not directly dealing with. So it's all happening here tonight. We heard about the feedback loop from the customer in terms of the rating system and the reviews that Tamika and her Bayleaf company definitely spend time attaining in order to make sure, and this is the important part, folks, not just getting the information, but acting on it. Want to make sure that you have actionable insights inside your lessons learned folder, right, Stuart?
Yes, essential folder. You could make mistakes, just learn.
Learn from them. Exactly so. So, I mean, I just thought that it was important just to kind of wrap up some of those key points and insights that were mentioned within that last segment. Understanding which industry you're in, understanding which niche you're appealing to, which segment that you're targeting, and what are the specifics of those segments. Yes, folks, all very important. Now, Tamika, back to you in terms of online presence, because I heard you mention a lot there about campaigns, about getting data and all this sort of stuff. How do you see your online presence currently? What do you think has worked for you so far in terms of driving success to your company? And it sounds as though you have a really nice community online around your product and your brand. Tell us a little bit about it.
So overall, because we have been so focused on wholesale and export, we haven't had a lot of focus on social media in terms of content. However, what we did and what helped us really connect to our local buyers was that during COVID, we opened a Caribbean tea room, and that Caribbean tea room allowed us to meet with customers face to face and interact with them and really have discussions around herbal teas, our herbal tea rituals and remedies. And, that for us was very important because here we were producing and shipping teas outside of the country, but we were not actually building a local connection to our market. And so that tea room allowed us that face-to-face interaction with customers. And that tea room and the experiences there and the feedback allowed us to start to build an online presence in the local market, right? And we are still very new in the social media field or area of the business. But one of the things that we defined was our communication style. And for the brand Bayleaf, that's so heavily rooted in a legacy of natural healing and so much culture. A big part of our mission online is to collect and share our rituals and remedies around herbal teas, right?
Right.
And we are in the process of planning that content. Coming from a media background, I think of social media in the same way I think of producing a television series, meaning that I have to plan the entire content outline for over a period of time, produce all of the content, and then share it over a period of time.
Right.
So we are working behind the scenes to really share the stories of our guests in the tea room and existing customers locally and abroad. We want to share their stories in order for them to connect to people out there who want to be inspired by herbal teas and get on their healing journeys. So I would say that that's been our strategy.
Really brilliant stuff tonight, Kendall.
I'm telling you, excellent stuff and exciting things definitely happening at Bayleaf.
Yeah. But I have another question. It's a tough question. How do you deal with the competitiveness in the industry? Meaning, as you said, rightfully so, it's the second most popular drink. It's coffee, and then there's tea, at least in the hot beverages category. It's worth generally, given the estimate you look at, between $50 to $80 billion as the size of the market. So every year, there are numerous new tea product launches. I mean, even if you look at the grocery in Trinidad now, I never knew they had so many brands of tea.
I'm telling you.
It's literally saturated, like shelves. It's not just one or two shelves again. It's all the way down to the bottom. Tea. So, is it that the pie is increasing so much that the competitiveness isn't being affected? Or is it a more competitive field right now? So, for instance, I know you did have the soursop teas in Trinidad at a point in time. So, I don't know if you want to talk about that experience, how competitive it was in our market as opposed to how competitive it is in the North American market.
Right. Yes, I'll touch on that. And that's a good example of studying a market and understanding if it's the right fit for your product at the right time.
Right.
So we did enter the Trinidad market with just one tea, the soursop tea. However, we didn't have any sort of marketing or brand awareness of the product. So the product was on the shelves at Massey through a distributor. It was one of the most expensive teas, of course, because of the currency that we operate with. And it moved slowly. So we learned from that, and we decided that we would really have to study the market and at some time in the future come back to Trinidad. So that's a lesson in entering a market,
if at all.
And learning a lesson, But in terms of overall competitiveness, for me personally, I'm very much about letting nature teach us and learning from nature. So my concept from the start was to really be clear and get clear on who we were, right? On defining what I like to call our DNA right? And really focusing on that and then building the brand around that.
Right.
Because I knew that once we were clear on our identity and who we were and who we're serving, that we would be able to align to our customers in a more powerful way. So I knew it's a huge market and I know there are a lot of competitors, but I just never focused on it because I knew that what we would have would be different. And I knew that we had to really focus on the value that we're offering and really just focus on connecting to customers that would appreciate that value. That's how I dealt with the concept of competition.
Right.
And I mean, today we've lived to see the fact that our teas are on the shelves alongside other brands that's been on the market for decades. But we're not competing directly with them because we are appealing to a specific customer. And that has worked for us.
Well, great.
And I mean, everything else that comes with the brand, as you mentioned, in terms of the rituals and the remedies and the effect of the natural composition and the natural healing of the product as well. As you said, it's functional, but it also has a very specific niche for that, which is important. Now, I wanted to talk a bit before we wrap up tonight about your journey in terms of being a world traveler. Of course, you're a Trini. You're operating out of Grenada ultimately right now. And you would have gone to Ethiopia, you mentioned. You did business in Turkey. You're operating in the US as well. For younger entrepreneurs coming up and business owners, what are some of the challenges that you had to overcome in terms of operating out of another country away from your home? And is there anything that you could share, maybe that you wish you knew back then that you know now?
I would say that it's really important to understand your purpose for traveling and really understand if you are comfortable with differences, right? You can travel for many reasons, but traveling and living in countries with far off cultures that are very different from your culture is something that requires a certain personality, right? So I would say the first thing is to really truly understand the kind of traveler you are and why you want to travel. I define myself as a cultural traveler, because I am there to actually experience unique cultures. And in experiencing those unique cultures, I gain so much inspiration and understanding about myself and my culture. In exploring the differences, you really begin to understand your uniqueness in the world. And so for me, there wasn't such of a challenge there for me because I was sort of clear on my purpose for traveling. So it was pretty exciting for me. But I think some of the challenges that can come up is basically if you are someone who isn't comfortable amongst differences, if you're someone that is not flexible and can't, roll with it and adapt to different situations, if you're not open to the novelty of it all and accepting it for what it is, then you would have challenges.
Right.
But if you're curious and open and really care about cultural differences and the understanding and knowledge that it could bring, it is pretty exciting. And it really allows you to have such a global perspective and understanding. And it really inspires your life. And, that's the experience that I've had with travels, like all my travels. I can connect the dots to all the experiences throughout my travels that have led me to doing what I'm doing today.
Nothing is by coincidence,
Nothing is by coincidence.
Nothing.
No, I just have one more question. I mean, honestly, I have two questions, but depending on how much time we have after this question, I decide whether to ask that one or not. But my question is, how do you manage that distributor relationship? Because you're in Grenada and distributors could be very funny because remember, you want them to not just have it on the shelf, but the right positioning on the shelf. You don't want it on the bottom shelf, you don't want it on the second or last shelf at the bottom, you want it in eyesight. I used to be in the distribution industry, and when I used to go and observe our merchandisers, it's really making sure the shelves papered, making sure price tags actually there with the correct pricing, making sure they're well positioned on the right shelf and all facing forward, making sure whatever marketing material and pops you have or you're using are displayed, checking the expirations, you're not really there to do that. So you rely on a third person to manage that for you. Plus, hope that they could tell that Caribbean story through the merchandising as well, whether it's some gondola display or, whatever in-store promotions they're doing. So how difficult, how challenging is it to, one, have faith in the distributor, and two, check up on the work that's being done? It's not as though you could just do an arbitrary site visit from Grenada, So I don't know if you could touch on that for a bit.
Right, that's a really important question. I have strategies that I employ. So apart from making trips to the stores that we sell to, I actually have individuals who I would ask to visit the store on my behalf. So I have sort of informal agents that would visit the store and give us feedback, take photos of the location. In one of our locations, I've developed relationships with other clerks at the store, right? Who will have us at the top of their mind. We have them on WhatsApp. I'm very good with following up. I like to say I'm a pest. I'm a proud pest, and I'm very good at following up and really ensuring that the reseller, the retailer, knows that we care about how our products are doing on the shelves, how they look, what customers are saying. So that's sort of the strategies I've put in place. I have help in doing the merchandising, even though I'm not there.
You have some secret shoppers, you have some spies out there.
I have spies.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is that the greatest challenge so far we've had with that is actually local. So recently we just became the sole supplier at Six Senses, which is a new resort here in Grenada.
Right.
And the resort is all about health and wellness. And we supply the teas to the hotel suites, to the restaurant. And even though they are local, that merchandising, that keeping up with the stock and restocking has been a challenge. And I've just told them that I would be coming and going directly to the rooms to check on my stock.
Right.
In order to do proper merchandising, if they are unable to do it,
Right.
So you have to be forceful sometimes and really let your partners know how much you care,
Yeah.
Well, merchandising is very important. People don't understand. There's a saying that empty shelf don't sell.
Exactly.
You need price to sell as well. I hate to go to a grocery and no prices. You're putting me as a consumer in a position. And if there's a product that I am managing as in the shelf, the price better be there. And the correct price as well. It's very, very important. There's the difference between a sale and not.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What affects us as well, of course, are shipping delays sometimes. So, of course, if that's not done and orders are placed late, then, the store can be out of stock. So we really have to be aware of that, to be ahead of our buyers. Because sometimes they will message us at midnight and say, "Hey, have you shipped it yet? My customers are upset that I'm out of stock," So we really we've put things in place to follow up and ensure that we are ahead of their orders so that there's always tea on the shelf.
Nice.
That there is always tea on the shelf
And on the right shelf too.
with the right price.
On the right shelf, in the right way, yes. Yes. We are always in stock of soursop tea, but anytime there are no leaves drying, that's a problem. These are the systems that we are putting in place to maintain our standards.
I'm glad you mentioned that because my final question is similar to what you're talking about there. You're managing suppliers, you're managing, of course, your supply chain. You're managing how you're getting your dried leaves, as you said, because if you don't have those, nothing else can happen.
Yes.
You're managing distribution, quality control, exporting logistics, shipping logistics, which sometimes could have challenges that you can't affect. You're talking about different territories. You're talking about marketing, building your brand, and then exporting it. I mean, how are you as an entrepreneur doing this? How are you doing it all?
Yes, that's a very good question. And one of the key points to note is that I cannot do it all, of course, right? So one of the lessons I've learned, and a lesson that every entrepreneur has to learn, is that you should fire yourself as soon as possible.
Yes.
Once you can bring on the right team members. And so I have worked with a production team from the start because of the nature of our business. Of course, we've had to have production staff. We've had our pruners. We've had our farmers, right? I have managed the logistics. And of course, as you go along, as the business grows and you have to really focus on the essential elements of the business for growth, I have had to fire myself and find the right person to work with. And right now, that is where we are in terms of working with a logistics manager to handle that part of the business. It's become so important for us to do that now. The other thing that we are doing is centralizing the operations. So we've had 2 drying spaces all along. And now we are centralizing the production of the teas and also centralizing the pruning of the leaves on one main farm, right? And by doing that and having a manager in place, that's going to help us to really develop the right system for growth. So that's where we are right now. There's really a focus on structuring and having the right person to help with the management of the logistics. I've done it for 5 years with some help, and I'm at the stage where I have to actually have someone who is way better than me to handle the process.
All right. Let me ask that question before you wrap up here. Everything right now is very price sensitive. How has the steep rise in the inflation affected your competitiveness? Meaning, you are distributing from the Caribbean. Our rate of inflation isn't as high as the rate of inflation in America. Does that give you a pricing edge in any way at all for you to become more competitive outside there? Have you been seeing movement in the prices of your competitors, and how you already deal with that situation?
So on our end, our prices haven't been affected that much because our teas are in its own, I would say, price segment, meaning that our teas are handmade and has a higher cost associated to producing it, right? So as it is right now on the shelves, our teas cost 3 to 5 times more than the price of other teas. So it's in its own segment. We haven't actually felt any of those shifts in our business. People are willing to pay the price for the teas that are handmade and come from foreign lands. So there's an advantage there. However, I mean, as we go along, we are going to work with our distributors with regards to price, right? Because of course, as you grow and you do different volumes, your pricing would need to be adjusted. That's where we are now. We haven't actually felt a shift in that area yet.
Hopefully, whatever shifts do come just makes you more competitive and makes you more attractive to the buyer.
Yes.
And I really hope you're able to figure out a way to expand and scale, seeing that the customer does not want the machine bagged option. It's going to have to be done by hand. So that might pose a challenge in terms of scaling the operation.
Of course. So we have still held on to our tea machine. And what we do is that when we are in discussions with a new buyer, we definitely offer them the option of the handmade teas or the machine made to sort of gauge where their preferences are.
Right.
So with new buyers, there's some new buyers who are fine with the machine made tea bags. And so we serve them those type of tea bags. So we're very clear about presenting the options to new buyers up front.
Great.
Fantastic stuff tonight. That's Tamika Phillip, founder and owner of Bayleaf, that brilliant tea company operating out of Grenada, where there's so much natural resources to really supply and benefit her business in so many ways. Another Trini, doing her thing out there, Stuart.
Yeah. Tamika Phillip. I mean, I'll let the audience know. I know Tamika sometime. Very proud of her. It's not easy for someone, much more a female, to go out there and do the thing by themselves. Go country to country. Seek out opportunities. It's sort of a brave, ballsy sort of thing to do. So I congratulate her on the success thus far and just hope that everything continues to grow.
Thank you, Stuart. I appreciate the support,
No problem.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
That is one of the main challenges in business, being alone.
Yeah, well, you're not alone. You have your team.
Yeah, and you have your friends here on the Big Potato podcast as well.
Absolutely.
Anytime you need to let off some steam, bounce off some ideas, or maybe just have a cup of tea, we are here for sure.
I'm looking forward to your visit to Grenada. We're in the process of creating a tea retreat villa.
Okay.
And you're invited.
Perfect.
And of course, in that villa, you're going to have unlimited tea.
Goes without saying, I guess.
You might have to run our next competition, visit to Grenada.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yes, I should.
Yeah.
And I've booked for that tea room.
Exciting episode tonight. Lots of insights for our audience as usual. All our entrepreneurs out there, business owners, those of you all probably thinking about it. As usual, I hope you guys have been inspired tonight with the information. Yep. Time to have a cup of tea and close it off for the rest of the night. Thank you so much, Tamika, and continued success to yourself and everyone at Bayleaf.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
That's a wrap, folks. Thank you and good night.
Entrepreneurship, it's our game. The Big Potato Podcast is yours to claim. From startups to scaling up, we cover it all. So don't mess up. Monday nights, don't miss the show with Kendall and Stuart. Your time to grow, listen up. Take notes and learn. The Big Potato Podcast, next gen's turn.